Hi, and welcome to everybody that's joined us on this Wednesday afternoon. This is the Intra Black Friday special presentation. We're going to be talking about becoming an occupational health and safety trainer within the context of the Occupational Health and Safety Act and its regulations and what's required. We're going to be touching on a number of things. So the recording will be available after this on YouTube. Natalie will send you the URL, and you can watch it. If you have a partner or anybody that you'd like to watch the presentation, feel free to invite them to come on and watch it. She also has a number of other documents and details that she would like to share with you. So at this stage, before I get into the presentation full-blown, Natalie, can I quickly ask you to reintroduce yourself? And then I'm going to ask Penny to introduce herself. Over to you, Nats.
Hi everyone, I'm Natalie. I'm the CRM manager, and I'm usually your first point of contact on your journey to becoming a licensee. So I'm your go-to for any initial questions and admin related tasks. And yeah, look forward to chatting to you further. Enjoy the session.
Natalie, thanks so much. Appreciate that. And we'll be talking to Natalie and get a little bit more detail and background from her in as much as what she's going to be able to do to help you get your business up and running or your health and safety training department up and running. And now I'm going to introduce Penny. Penny's my partner. She's also my wife. If you look at the surname, it's very confusing. It says Penny Jones, but she's actually Penny Annandale. No, she goes, very independent woman. She operates on her maiden name. Over to you, Penny.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Penny, and I'm the co-founder of Intra together with Ken. I'm more on the finance side and the delivery side, and responsible for the e-learning and also the do-it-yourself QCTO accreditation workshops, which saves you lots of time and lots of money, for your QCTO accreditation. Back to Ken.
Great. Now, you've seen or met the immediate team. There are a number of other people that are with us as well, one of whom is in Ireland right now. I was chatting to a couple of minutes ago via WhatsApp. We have a number of people up in Gauteng, and we operate from Mauritius. We've been here for the past 7 years. So Penny mentioned something. She said that we have this company called INTRA-SAFE, which we started 12 years ago. And it's amazing how time flies. And INTRA-SAFE's primary objective is to assist people to get up and running as health and safety training practitioners. I'm going to be doing a PowerPoint presentation. I just need Natalie to confirm that she can see that. And in the PowerPoint presentation, I'm going to provide you with a fair amount of detail. Thanks, Natalie. And that detail comes hand in hand with the document called the prospectus. And then you will have the video from today together with the prospectus, together with any other documentation that you require from us. The objective, of course, is to give you a quick insight into how you can become a health and safety training provider and what the business opportunity is if you're thinking of becoming an independent training provider. If, however, you work for a corporate organization or a governmental department, you'll see how you can interface this directly into your existing training plans and so forth. We'll talk about the specials. There's a 15% discount in October this month, and that goes down to the normal 10% discount in November. And we'll give you more information on that. So there's an image of Penny. The company Intra has been around for 12 years. We have assisted literally dozens upon dozens upon dozens of people to set themselves up in health and safety training, either, as I mentioned earlier on, a corporate training provider or an in-house training provider, or alternatively entrepreneurs who want to run their own organizations. We're members of Saiosh, IOSH, FP&M, SETA, and the APID organization in South Africa. And as a result of that, we are able to stay abreast of all the latest, up-to-datest information. And I just saw this morning that there is a draft amendment bill for the Mines Health and Safety Act, if you're interested in mining and training in the mining realm. Okay, now, training is really important. In South Africa, the predominant piece of legislation, as you know, is the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And it has various regulations, about 22 regulations. And one of the reasons we obviously do health and safety is to save money, because accidents, incidents are really expensive. But then there is another reason, because this Health and Safety Act, or OSA, is governed by the Department of Employment and Labor, and I'm sure you know that it is criminal legislation. So if you fail to comply with the legislation, you could, or your employer could, or your client could land up in court with fines or even, heaven forbid, imprisonment. Now, there's a little saying that I have, it goes like this. Our job is to keep employers out of court and to keep employees out of hospital. And we know that incidents, accidents, diseases, things of that nature are exceptionally costly and difficult for people in the community. If you look at the second X-ray at the bottom there with the spinal fusion, and you'll see those spikes in the spine. Well, that's what my spine looks like. I've had 2 of those, and probably as a result of not looking after my back properly. However, we'll talk more about that in due course. I want to quickly say to you that thank you for joining us. You probably got an email from Natalie saying there is a business opportunity, come and take a look, and that's precisely what we're going to be doing. This business opportunity has been around for a long time. We know that we've got well over 100 people that have actually taken advantage of it, and Penny will probably talk a little bit more about that. Now, because the OSA is specific to so many people in South Africa, we're going to reference 1 or 2 sections from the OSA. The first one is the employer's duties, which is found in Section 8. And if you look at Section 8 and read it thoroughly, I often hear people talking about legalese. Now, this legislation is written in English. It's not difficult legislation to understand. It says the employer must establish the hazards attached to the work performed. Hazards go hand in hand with dangers, go hand in hand with the risks. So let's bear that in mind. The employer must identify the hazards. Then it says once the employers identify the hazards, they must establish which precautionary measures should be taken, what safe work procedures or operating procedures need to be taken when working with those articles and substances and plant and equipment and stuff like that. And then the employer is obliged to provide information, instruction, training, and supervision. So if you think of it, the law lays it out clearly as to what should be taking place when it comes to health and safety training. It has to be based on the hazards and include the precautionary measures and provided in an information session, an instruction session, and or a training session. But here's a question, no price, but what's the difference between information, instruction, and training? And if I was a prosecutor, I would come along and I'd say, can you show me, can you prove that you provided information to your employees? Do you have registers? Do you have certificates? Do you have photographs? Do you have anything to prove that you provided information? Interesting, isn't it? And then instruction. What's the difference between information and instruction? And then what's the difference between instruction and training? Aren't they the same things? Well, I mentioned the word or term legalese, and you'll find that these are legal terms that come up over and over and over, not just in South Africa, but internationally as well. Now, why do I enjoy this legislation? I'm a former law enforcement officer. I was in the police force for, gosh, good 5-6 years. Then I was in the military police in the Navy. And as a result of that, I have thoroughly enjoyed the transition of legislation from the old Factories Act to the Machinery and Occupational Safety Act to the Occupational Health and Safety Act, which we are talking about now, the OSA. And shortly, we believe, we're still going to find out exactly when, the new amendment bill to the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So I enjoy the legislation, and I'll share this with you. Now, let's carry on. We see in Section 13 that it talks specifically about what the employer must do. And it uses a term called reasonably practicable. I'm sure you've heard of that. I'm sure you've also heard of the term called the reasonable man, or nowadays, maybe we should say the reasonable person. And reasonability is a principle in the law. Now, we just said must identify the hazards, then write the procedures, and then provide the information, instruction, and training. Then once that has been done, it says that the employer must cause every employee. Now, wow, every employee. Let me ask you another question. Not what the difference is between inform, instruct, and train, but how many employees are there in South Africa? And if you go into Stats SA, you'll see the amount of employees. We'll talk about that in a second. Then once this information, instruction, and training has been provided, we see that the employee that has been informed, instructed, and trained needs to be conversant. And what's conversant mean? It means that after the session, whatever that session or briefing might be, that employee should be able to talk about the danger, hazard, or risk. Does that make sense? As well as they need to be able to talk about what these safe work procedures, safe operating procedures are. Now, I'm mentioning this because we live in a country where the rule of law is prominent. It's the eminent legislation. We have the Constitution, and then we know that the Constitution says do this, do that. We know that the OSA says do this, do that. Now, we'll come back to this legal compliance. Comply with the law, comply with the law. Okay, now, there are a couple of places in the legislation where it says to what level. So it said conversant. Now it says that the person must be competent. And I'm sure you've heard this term competency used all the time, over and over and over and over. Competency, certificate of competency, and things of that nature. But what most people don't know or understand is that that word competency is not a SAQA, SETA, NQF word. It's an Occupational Health and Safety Act word, and it makes it a criminal responsibility to ensure that people must be competent. Okay, so I just highlighted the word competent person, and then there is a definition. And you'll see that it continues right at the bottom there, and it says not only must the person be competent in that specific work or task, but they must also be familiar with the Act and the applicable regulations. And I see this happening all the time, and I'm guilty of it probably. I mentioned that I was a policeman, and then I was in the Navy, became an officer in the Navy, and then I worked in security, and that's when I got involved in occupational safety. And I attended a couple of workshops on the legislation at the time, and had been privileged to actually participate in the writing and or direction of legislation over the past couple of years. Now, at the time, I decided to further my career. I worked for NOSA, the National Occupational Safety Association, a good 5 years there. And then I decided to set up a training company. Now, could you imagine this? I would do a training session, and that training session could be a day or half a day or 2 days or something like that. But I would never ensure that the person was familiar with the Act and the applicable regulations. All the training that we did was just generalized training. But it says clearly there that the employee must be familiar with the Act and the applicable regulations. Now, I'm going to see what happens if they're not familiar. But having said that, you often find people talking about accreditation. We'll touch on that as well. And we see in accreditation, this comes up with first aid, ergonomics, lifting or drawing machinery, and working at heights of construction regulation. We see very, very clearly that competency is required in those regulations. Okay, so now having said that, these are regulations which are applicable to many, many, many people. I mean, many organizations, many companies, many governmental departments, and so forth. Now, there are more regulations where they talk of competency, such as the Major Hazard Installation Regulation, but the question is, does it apply to you? Or hazardous chemical agents, or hazardous biological agents, and if it does apply to you, then the person needs to be competent. But we need to read the law. Remember I said it's English, it's not difficult, it's not legalese. Need to read the law and understand that we tick all the requirements there. Then, of course, there is a regulation called the Commercial Diving Regulation, and you know about that, that's offshore diving. And would that apply to you? And the last one is asbestos. Would that apply to you? So you can immediately see at the outset, there are certain things that do apply to you and your clients or your prospective clients, and or don't apply to you. Now, I happen to come out of a diving environment. I mentioned I was in the Navy, and I was also a sports diver. But this is commercial diving. It's a different animal, if you like. Okay, so we'll talk about accreditation, and Penny's standing by to just give us a quick, brief overview of it just now. But having said that, let's go straight into the next point. The next point is, if I can get my mouse to work, there. In the regulations, when you look at the regulations, you'll see that the regulations are quite clear. And I'm going to be talking about the ergonomics regulation. This regulation came out right about the time of COVID. So I think it's 2019. COVID is probably 2020. And we all knew that COVID was here. And I got the regulations. I had a look at it and wrote some training material together with a subject matter specialist. But let's have a look at what it says. And at the same time, I want to say this. I believe that the Department of Employment and Labor are excellent when it comes to marketing health and safety training, because it's in the law, it's written. Can't argue with that. I said, we live by the rule of law. And what does the ergonomics regulation say about training? Now, previously we saw that in section 13, every employee. Now the ergonomics regulation that says that all employees, and the ergonomics regulation applies to all the employees, not just some. And it speaks about mandatories, which are contractors, and persons other than employees. So from a sales and marketing point of view, you want to sell training. Wow, ergonomics is a good one. It then carries on and says when. And it says that this training must take place before the placement of the employee. And if you're great at sales, or even not so great at sales, all you need to do is you need to point out to the employer, this is what the law says. It's not you making it up. It's what the law says. Then the ergonomics regulation carries on and says the employer must conduct refresher training. Now, I love this because now we're talking about business and repeat training and repeat income and repeat visits. Refresher is a word that is legislated. Wow, that's cool. Then it carries on and it says that there are other people such as designers and manufacturers and so forth, that they must train as well, where you can assist those people to do the training. All of this is gazetted in the government gazette. Now, At this stage, I must say that a lot of people would say, but do we not have to be accredited? And the answer is, the Afrikaans have a nice saying, ja, nee, yes, no. Yes and no. But only where the law says it must be accredited for competency. Okay, so that makes sense. And that's what we noticed wasn't even 9 regulations. That's great. But for it to be accredited, there has to be a unit standard or a QCTO code. I'm sure you appreciate that. Let me say that again. For it to be accredited, there has to be a unit standard or a QCTO code. And in this instance, for ergonomics, there are no unit standards and there is no QCTO code. And you cannot get accreditation for ergonomic regulation training at all, neither with SETA nor with QCTO. However, I do need to point out, because some of you may know this, that with the ergonomics regulation, there is a SAQA unit standard, but that unit standard only applies to ergonomic risk assessors, not to employees. Wow. It's interesting. They wrote this regulation, but SAQA never caught up, never wrote a unit standard for that. Okay, so now that's interesting. We'll carry on and I'll just talk to you about what we're going to do if we don't comply. So I remember I said, our job is largely to keep the employer out of court and to keep the employee out of hospital. So we see this coming up under offenses and penalties. And one needs to ask the question, does this apply to you? Now, I want to be a little careful over here. In terms of the Occupational Health and Safety Act, it says any person, not just the employer, any person. Wow, that's a massive market. Once again, from a sales and marketing point of view, it just opens the door. Any person shall be guilty of an offense and on conviction be liable to a fine not exceeding 50,000 Rand. Now, if you know anything about the law, this could be 50,000 Rand per offense, not just a global 50,000 Rand. Then I mentioned to you that we're awaiting the promulgation of the amendment bill, the Occupational Health and Safety Amendment Bill. Natalie and I chaired the Saiosh conference. We were at the Saiosh conference in Cape Town in August, and we met with the Inspector General, a lady by the name of Aggie Moilua, I think is how you pronounce her surname. And she mentioned at the conference, she's the Inspector General of the Department of Employment and Labor, that the amendment bill is probably going to reach the president's desk this year. So there's another opportunity for you to get ready so that when the amendment bill is published, either for commentary or alternatively as legislation, you as a training provider would be ready to actually provide the training information and instruction to employers and employees. Okay, now look at this. I have had the privilege of chatting to the former chief inspector, Mr. Tiwosana, and he was saying that he was largely responsible for the writing of the amendment bill. And because employers are not complying as they should be, this is the fine now. And it says any person could be fined up to 5 million Rand or in prison for a period not exceeding 12 months. And have a look at that. And in the case of continuous offenses, not exceeding an additional fine of 200 Rand or additional imprisonment. Now, I don't want to scare you, but again, just think of it from a sales point of view. You're sitting with a client, you're going, do you realize that the fines are going to be up to 5 million Rand? Currently 50, but 5 million Rand. That's so important. Now, I alluded to the fact that all employees and every employee, do you know there's 16 million employees that fall under the Occupational Health and Safety Act? These are employees, as we know them, or self-employed people, contractors, subcontractors, mandatories and the like. 16 million people need to be trained. So my question to you is, do you also, as I do, see an opportunity, a business opportunity here to actually provide training to some of these 16 million people? And if you do, I believe that you're in the right place. Okay. And for that, we decided that what we would do is we would develop a licensing agreement, almost like a franchise, and then make it available to people in South Africa so they could become their training providers. So every year, at this time of the year, we have a Black Friday special on that licensing agreement. I mentioned once again, it's similar to a franchise. We'll talk about it in a moment, but that licensing agreement means that you run your own business. That's important for me to say. In the month of October, if you join and sign up now, you'll get 15% off the price or the fees. And then, of course, in November, it goes down to the normal 10%. And you can take advantage of either or. Great. So if you want the 15% saving, chat to Natalie now and or get it in place from a procurement point of view and so forth. But here we go. Let me talk to you about this license model or the franchise model. So let me stick to the word license model. The license model is made up of these different elements, and I'll touch on each one very, very briefly. There is a document that goes hand in hand with it called the prospectus, and if you don't have it yet, you can get it from Natalie. In fact, my suggestion is get the latest one because we update it from time to time. You can chat to Natalie about that. So let me break it down for you. The license arrangement is that there are basically 5 licenses and or packages or bundles. And the first one is the platinum, and that would include all of those elements, every single one of them. Similarly, the prime, all of those elements. But for the basic and the starter, it's just the yellow elements, not the ones in white. The ones in white would then be for platinum and prime. I hope that makes sense. Then we've got a new one called the fast track for those of you that want to become first aid training providers. And that's in terms of the QCTO and its new curriculum. So having said that, you become a licensee, sign up, and we ask you to attend the business orientation sessions once a month. And to help you with that, we've got an operations manual, and we would provide you with that, and we'd ask you and your staff and your team and your freelancers and your admin people and whoever's working with you to actually come through the orientation processes. We also have meetings with individuals from time to time. You can set it up with Natalie where we'll do a Zoom call, and she was just chatting to me about somebody who wants to chat to us on Friday, and we can do Zoom from wherever we are, in the car, at the shopping mall, or maybe we just do it via WhatsApp. All you do is chat to Natalie and set up an appointment, and we'll gladly spend some time with you on the phone. Okay, now, setting up a business means that you're going to have to do sales and marketing. So we are really privileged. Natalie has a degree from UCT in media, and she has worked for a number of advertising agencies. And I'm going to ask her to quickly talk you through this online marketing setup that she provides to our licensees as part of the fee. Over to you, Nat.
Yes, thanks so much. So this digital marketing online presence setup is included in the Prime license, which you'll hear a bit more about shortly. But what that entails is essentially a setup getting you present on a couple of platforms that are really important from a visibility and credibility perspective. So I set that up for you. I also provide you with a lot of resources that can help support you get your digital marketing off the ground. And if you happen to already have some kind of established presence, then what I do is I audit it for you and I take a look and see where you can improve your marketing efforts. And that will just give you a boost in terms of getting going with the digital marketing aspect of things, because it can feel very overwhelming initially, but it is an important part of the function of your business. Back to you, Dad.
Great. Natalie, thank you so much. And I can just endorse the work that Natalie's done for our licensees. She's done dozens upon dozens and really helped them. She's also helped us as an international business who operate into Africa, so that people can find us and talk to us. And as a result of that, the administrative mechanisms that she recommends that you put in place will save you literally weeks every year. And it is so important to get these things done. And that could be the differentiation between you and somebody else that's in the marketplace, whether you can be found or not found. Okay, more about that in our orientation sessions as well. Okay, now I'm going to go to Penny. Penny, are you available just to talk about the e-learning and the earning opportunity and the orientation of the trainers?
Sure, thanks, Ken. So the e-learning platform, I think after COVID-19, we were all very much more comfortable with online training. And we decided to make this available to our licensees, especially those that are maybe just starting up and not yet prepared to lay out resources to have their own e-learning platform. So we currently have 15 courses. It's all your very, very popular legal compliance courses. And it's an excellent way for you to help your clients just tick box all of those legal compliance items for their employees. Ideal for those that are computer literate. They can take themselves easily through these courses. and there's a downloadable test at the end of each, and then they can download a certificate of completion. This works for any number. If you've just got like a couple of people in one geographic area and a couple of people in another geographic area, it just solves all of those issues with the awkwardness and the expense of trying to get around to multiple geographic locations for the training. So it's very, very cost effective. It's also extremely convenient for your clients because they don't have to pull these employees out of the work schedule in order to get these legal compliance training courses done. It's also an excellent opportunity for you to add some monthly income, add an extra 10,000 a month or 20,000 a month, just depends how you really want to add e-learning as part of your suite that you're helping your clients with. And we charge you a base rate of $275 plus VAT per learner per course, and you can charge your client typically $650. Some guys are charging $750 or even $850, depending on how much orientation, etc., that they're doing. If you do complete all 15 courses, we have a very special qualification which is trademarked for Intra called a HASMAN, and we can issue you with that certificate. We do give 2 free delegates for most of the license program bundles, so that you and somebody else in your team can actually go through each of the courses. An excellent way to orientate yourself with the quality, high quality of the training material, and also so that, very importantly, you understand how the process works in terms of these courses. Very popular, very excited, and we're going to be shortly adding 4 more. So it will be ultimately 19 before the end of the year. Back to Ken.
Thanks, Penny. I was chatting to a young man the other day, and he was saying that his employer told him he must do the training, but he has no background in health and safety training. Now, if you understand what the law says, it says the employer must do the training. And it's the employer's prerogative as to who is going to do this training. So it is their right to say to an employee, you know, you might be an engineer or a supervisor or somebody like that, you do the training. And that's what he said to me. He says, what do I know about health and safety? And I said, well, for that reason, we will orientate you to the best of our ability. You do your own homework. You attend all these programs. You get the HASMAN certificate. You will then have a general insight and overview of what's going on. You will not be a subject matter specialist by any stretch of the imagination, but you will have general information. And you'll see when you see the topics there that they are made up in such a way that it's logical. It's sort of a developmental program for an absolute novice who knows nothing about it. Okay, or whatever that topic might be. I'm going to give you another example in a short while. But to do the training, you need training material. So we currently have 24 training programs that are currently available under the heading of legal compliance. So when I was speaking to the former chief inspector, he agrees. He says, if it's in the law, do it. You can't avoid that. If it's not in the law, you don't have to do it. You can if you want to, but you don't have to do it. And that's such an important statement, because we do talk to people and they say, is this registered material? Is it verified? Is it accredited? Well, if it's not in the law, you don't have to do it. Simple. I'm sure you understand that. However, we will strongly encourage you to become an accredited training provider for a couple of other reasons as well. So those programs there, you can't see the titles probably, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to break them down very quickly for you. Think of this. You arrive at a company and you say to the employer, what are your needs? And they would say, I need legislation. I need information on AIDS. I need information on asbestos. Because now, in terms of Section 8, the identification of the dangers, hazards, and risks may result in you having a list that you can work from, and you would then be able to provide this training to the client. I'll come back to each one of these topics. So there's asbestos, and COIDA, and construction regulations, and COVID-19. And you go, wow, COVID-19, is that still around? Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if the disease is around anymore, but there is a requirement in terms of QCTO when you're going for your accreditation that you have trained the people in COVID-19. Then there's dangerous goods on the road, there's electricity, there's environmental issues, as we know about sustainability and so forth. There's ergonomics, there's slip, trip, and fall, and there's also fire. So that's 12 of our programs at this stage. I've just literally received the 24th program today from our developer, and the topic is going to be working in confined spaces. But I want to use this ergonomics one as an example. What do you know about ergonomics? You might never even read the regulation. But that's fine. We go, well, that's part of my job, our job, Penny's job. we will then orientate you either via the e-learning platform that we spoke about and or video that we've already recorded on ergonomics. I'm going to come back to that in a moment, but let me tell you what the others are. Then there's first aid, and we know that that's both a legal requirement as well as a logical requirement. And food hygiene, personal hygiene when it comes to food, health and safety representatives, some people call it SHE-REPs. Then there's hazardous chemical substances, HIRA, which is hazard identification and risk assessment, induction, one of my favorites because it comes with a really, really good video, investigation, noise, supervision, tools, hand tools that is, and now number 24 will be working in confined spaces. So that's the list. So there you are, you want to be running courses or suggesting that you can run courses for a client, and you could say to them, right, we're going to start off with the ordinary average employee, and we're going to induct them. And once we've finished the induction, we're going to put them through a fire course. And once we've done that, ergonomics, because remember that said all and every all is everybody, all 16 million people there. Then electricity, because we all come into contact with electricity, and we all use tools, and we all could slip, trip, and fall. We all, in some other way, have to deal with hazardous chemical substances. We all come into contact with noise, and sometimes we come into contact with asbestos. So that range there, that's the average employee. We can build on that model. We can add to or take away from, depending on what the the employee's specific needs are, or what their risk profile is. Then we see in the legislation, we must put together a health and safety management system. And that would start with everybody knowing about the Occupational Health and Safety Act and how to set up the Health and Safety Committee and appoint their health and safety representatives. And then, because Section 8 says inform, instruct, train, and supervise. We've got a supervision program, which is excellent. We've got a hazard identification and risk assessment program. Well, this is for the people on the committee. This is for the management that will be doing these things. An investigation in the incident or accident, in the event of an incident or accident. And then first aid, which is everybody needs to know first aid, everybody. However, there is a requirement in terms of the legislation, which we'll talk about, and that's being dealt with the QCTO at the moment. There's construction regulations, if that's appropriate. Very important to know. The claims track, which is the COIDA, compensation of occupational injuries and diseases, and then dangerous goods on the road. Now, before I move on, I just want to say that first aid is really, really important. As we know, we have a client who has about 600 security guards. And you know that there is an appointment arrangement. If you've got 10 or more employees, you need a first aider. If you've got 50 or more, you need another first aider, and so forth and so forth. But he's got 600 security guards. He said he wants everybody trained in first aid. That's interesting. So we've got two target markets there. The first target market we'll call the employees who are appointed in terms of General Safety Regulation 3. And the second target market would be members of the public or others that are not appointees. But more about that later on. Then, of course, we know that health, hygiene, and wellness are really important. So there we start looking at the environment. We look at AIDS, COVID, and food, with more to come. So it's a wide range of programs that you could take to a client and say, could we, I suggest that we do an assessment, we do a HIRA, we determine which of these are relevant to you, and then you as the service provider can go in and actually run the courses for the client. Now, I said that we start with inductor, and this is true of all of the programs except, let me say this loudly and boldly, this is the only one with video material. But we shot a professional video for the inductor program. It comes with facilitator guide, learner guide, and pocketbooks and facilitator visuals and support material, such as the pocketbooks as an example. We give you the right to reproduce the trainee material. We guarantee you that it's not cut and paste and we didn't steal it from anybody. And really important, we make it customizable. You'll get it in Word for Windows or a PowerPoint format, so you can add to or take from that which is relevant. That's exciting. You can also rebrand as long as you maintain our copyright throughout. Okay, then once you've done the training, whatever course it is, then you have the right to issue a certificate of attendance, but not competency. Please notice, competency is where we're doing accredited training in terms of those regulatory requirements. That certificate will actually provide you with a certificate which you can customize accordingly and you can issue to the client. Then, for those of you that are Prime and Platinum, you will also receive about 50 formally unit standard aligned programs in terms of SACWA. Now, just a quick aside, you may or may not know this, but there's a transition from SETA to SACWA. My apologies, from SETA to QCTO, and it has confused the market, and we've all been running around like chickens with our heads, trying to get our heads around it. So they cancelled all the unit standards. Some 11,000 unit standards were cancelled in June of last year. And then there was a big outcry, massive outcry. Penny and I were involved in lobbying and serving on committees and things like that. And then they brought the unit standards back. But what they didn't bring back is they did not bring back the ability to get SETA accreditation as a new applicant. So SETA accreditation only applies to those who are currently accredited, whose accreditation has not expired. Okay, more about that, a lot more about that in our training sessions as well. But it's important to know that there's nothing wrong with this training material. This training material is good training material that you can run, even though you're not going to follow all the tick box and hoops and hurdles of the SACWA requirements. Okay, there's a lot of that, and Natalie will send you a document and it highlights all of these programs that we've got available. Okay, now there's a question saying, but has it not expired? The answer is, once again, yes and no, possibly. And it's important that you as a training provider are familiar with what's going on. Please note, we'll bring it to your attention wherever possible, but it's up to you to go onto the website and have a look to see whether the training or the unit standard or the qualification has or has not expired. Very important. That's going to be up to you, but we'll give you some guidance. So the question is, when are they going to get it sorted? This year, next year, 2026? And we know that they've extended some of these unit standards to 2026. So this is an area which you're going to have to pay close attention to. We will definitely bring it to your attention if you're a licensee so that you can adapt or adjust your training offering. Okay, so in the meantime, there was an anticipation that the QCTO would replace all the unit standards. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with the QCTO, the acronym is Quality Council for Trades and Occupations. Quality Council for Trades and Occupations. So QCTO was going to focus on trades and trades alone. However, they've been pushed into a corner where they now have to deal with not just qualifications, but what is called skills programs or part skills programs. Skills programs are the short courses. So if you look at that table over there, this is training material that we've currently got. And we'll start off with the top one, project management, then occupational health and safety officer, safety inspector, safety practitioner. If you look on the right-hand side, it'll say levels, credits, and notional hours. And you can see from the levels, credits, and notional hours that they are long courses. Long courses. We'll provide you with lots of information as to how to go about working with that. Then the next three are the 3 first aid courses. Look at the levels, credits, and notional hours there. Considerably different. So the basic emergency first aid responder, that's 2 credits, which is essentially 2 days, thereabouts. Now, those are the courses that most of us would be focusing on. And certainly you can get accreditation for the others as well. And there are literally dozens upon dozens of other courses that QCTO have that might not be health and safety related, but that you could possibly use. That's interesting. There's another URL over there, which you can ask Natalie for. She can pop it into the chat box, and you can go and have a look at what unit standards have been replaced, and certainly what qualifications have and still exist. Right at the bottom, you'll see it says there, plus or minus 12 HWC to QCTO skills programs. Those skills programs are the short courses that I'm talking about, the 1, 2, and 3 day courses. I like to call them micro courses, and they really aren't diplomas or university degrees or anything of that nature. It is a certificate of attendance, or in this instance, a certificate of competency. So having said that, what's coming? They've given us a list, and Penny and I were on a work group where we were helping the QCTO and the HWC to actually write the curriculum for these, and they provided us with 12 or so, Penny can probably confirm that figure, programs where the curriculum is about to come out, but we have no idea when. They said it would be out in May. No. They said it would be out in September. No. Now we hear it's going to be out in November, but they never did say which year. Maybe it's November 2025. I don't know. I'm joking. But Penny will be able to provide a little bit more information on that. So we will then develop training material that is relevant to that skills program and make it available to you, the training provider, often called an STP, Skills Development Provider, at no extra cost. This is part of the deal. We did that with the Basic Emergency First Aid Program. It took a long time to write this training material. It is compliant with the Occupational Health and Safety Act Regulation 3, General Safety Reg 3, and it is compliant with the SETA, the former SETA unit standard, and now it's compliant with the QCTO curriculum. Spend a lot of time and effort and energy putting the very best training material that we've got together. Now, please note that it's quite possible, and Penny will talk to you about that, how you can become a first aid training provider using either your own skills and competencies or that of other people who could freelance for you. Okay, so having said that, over to Penny. Penny, would you like to talk about your Accredipack and then the DIY program?
Sure, thanks, Ken. So in January of this year, we decided to do our own in-house how-to program and or workshop supported by a massive Google Drive folder, which gives you absolutely every single checklist and template, etc., that you might need, specifically to help you get your QCTO accreditation. At the moment, we're very limited in terms of what QCTO has to offer in the short course space. So those that were interested in first aid, this was ideal for them to quickly move forward and get their accreditation, and many have already got their accreditation letters. We have been able to find out that working with QCTO in terms of the online submissions and the accreditation process has many advantages over the old SETA system. And just by following everything diligently and going through a step-by-step process, you will in fact definitely get your accreditation. So there is good news. There is a lot of light at the end of the tunnel. And we are looking forward to these new short courses becoming available. I think over the next 1, 2, 3 years in particular, we're going to see a deluge of new training materials becoming available through the QCTO system. They do have slightly different approaches, and slightly different perspectives to our industry in particular. But we are working with them and they're very responsive. And already we've been able to make quite a lot of progress. So our next workshop that we are hosting, and this is exclusive to our Prime and Platinum licensees, is on Thursday, the 14th of November. And what we do there is we just go through absolutely each of the essential elements, and we explain in the Google Drive folder all the different supportive documents that you have, including the templates that would normally cost you a fair amount of money if you had to buy them individually, to be fair, especially the QMS. So that is massive, massive value that we're offering our licensees. And I think the licensees have really enjoyed the process of being involved in the interactive workshops, and also giving their feedback after their own site visits and sharing their experience with others. We also have several licensees that are themselves verifiers for the QCTO, and we make use of their services as well. In fact, I've got a session just after this session with one of our verifiers, and that's also very helpful so that you know exactly ahead of time exactly what you can expect, and you can be 100% prepared. So it's not doom and gloom at all. I think that, definitely if you are comfortable with first aid and you have all of the equipment, the first aid tends to be fairly expensive in terms of all the additional equipment that you do need. And that's why I know a lot of licensees are waiting for the OHS HWSETA shorter courses that will be coming out shortly. Because you don't have to have all of this additional investment in terms of the equipment. But if first aid is part of your game, then definitely, you can rock and roll with that immediately. And back to Ken.
Thanks, Penny. Appreciate that. Yeah, I tell you what, for those of you that are considering becoming licensees, it is honestly I don't want to call it a shortcut, but it is a logical process, because imagine you had to do all the research and development yourself, write the training material, get to know which the documents are, which websites go. I think, Penny, in your credit pack, you've got about 2-3 dozen different forms and formats. Is that right?
Yeah, it is a lot, and it appears a little bit daunting. But when I break it down, then it really is not so daunting, and it just saves you so much money and puts you in control of the process. I think there's nothing more frustrating than thinking that you're waiting for an end result, but somehow your application was never completed correctly, or it didn't get through correctly, or there's some issue which, had you known and had you been in control of the process, would never have happened. And, definitely you can avoid these like terrible 2-year delays by being in control of the process yourself. We're finding the fastest turnaround time is maybe 4.5 months for QCTO accreditation, and that's quite rare, I would say. But typically you're looking at 6, 7, 8 months for your accreditation process, depending on how tight some of the sections are. And we go through that in the workshop so that you have a clear understanding. But right now, if you're setting up for 2025, there could be nothing more perfect that you could do than get all of your documents organized so that you're ready to submit your accreditation. Back to Ken.
Thanks, Penny. Yeah, I just watched, Penny, the amount of research that she's done to get all this information in a single place. And that's what you're going to get, and it's going to be really useful. You can also include your admin staff in these workshops that Penny's running, and they can sit in on it. It's not just a matter of you having to do it and then you teach them. Penny will work with them as well. Okay, Penny, thank you so much. 14th of November, it's a Thursday, for those who are Prime or Platinum licensees. It's part of the deal. Okay, I want to move on and then say to you, but what else? Well, I'll tell you what else. Is that we don't leave you there. We don't just sign you up as a licensee and that's it. Good luck. Goodbye. It literally is a matter that we'll work with you on an ongoing basis. We've had, over the past year or 2 or 3, various subject matter experts, specialists, inspection authorities, inspectors, attorneys. Well, not so much the attorney. We're waiting for our first presentation on the amendment bill shortly. But we bring these people to the party, and you and your team can attend these webinars free, gratis, and for nothing. It's part of the license fee. We have a monthly license fee, which Natalie will talk about just now, and it's all included. And it's an ongoing thing, and there's a great resource on YouTube that you can go to. We've got a private section where some of these files are not accessible to the public, only to licensees. All right, something that is important is to know this, that you're not alone. Because we've got over 100 licensees in Africa, we have people represented in the different cities, towns, and villages. We have people that are in the different countries and regions, and we have people literally from Dubai right down to Durbanville that will be able to assist you. So let's imagine this. You work in East London, and you have somebody that needs a training program that takes place in Welkom because they've got a branch there. What you can do is you can network with the licensees that are in Welkom or Bloemfontein or Kimberley, and they can go and run the program for you. You collaborate with them. Now, we don't get involved with that. That's just between you and them, and you set it up and you work. It's almost like having your own database of freelance people that you can access. So that's an important element, and we make that available, bearing in mind Papaya, the act, the legislation. We don't publish the information lightly, but we get people's permission so that you talk to them, they talk to you above board. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to just quickly break down these different programs in terms of what you're going to get. I'm going to ask Natalie to talk about it. Remember, right in the beginning, I said all of these elements are relevant to Platinum and Prime, but the ones in white are not relevant to the basic starter and fast track. So you can then have a look at this and go, what will work for me? What will work in terms of obviously a business perspective, or alternatively in terms of meeting the legislative requirements within the organization. I'm going to start with the fast track, and I'm going to ask Natalie to talk through that one.
So the fast track is great for those wishing to present. We fast track or starter?
Oh, sorry. I'm running ahead. It's the starter. My apologies. Thanks, Nats.
Okay. So the first one is the starter bundle, which is ideal for providers who want to just get going initially and perhaps build their way to one of the other license packages, such as Basic or Prime. It includes any 6 original training materials. It does not include the right to reproduce the learning material or the right to reproduce the facilitated material. You also get access to any 6 e-learning courses that correspond with the 6 training materials that you choose. You have the right to resell the e-learning training, and you have the right to issue certificates of attendance. So this is great for non-credit bearing training. And this doesn't include a monthly license fee. It's just a once-off cost. And you have the option to upgrade, and we will credit whatever you paid for the starter off the basic license or off the prime license.
Great. Thanks, Natalie. Appreciate that. All right, let's go on to the next one, which is the basic. And this is ideal for single training providers where they've got one branch, they operate from an office or maybe even from your home. And I started my business out of the boot of my car, and I traveled to the client's premises and ran the training programs over there. So you start, get going, then you start building towards prime. There you get with basic, you get all 24 original training materials that we mentioned over there. Plus, you have 2 trainers, yourself and somebody else, can attend the intra e-learning orientation that Penny had spoken about. You could or should go for the HASMAN certificate. We strongly encourage it to make sure that our licensees are at least subject matter knowledgeable. And Penny spoke about completing all 15 and getting the HASMAN certificate. Then they are invited to, you and them are invited to our licensee orientation Zoom sessions. Now for this one, there is a monthly license fee, which Natalie will talk about in a short while. And once again, the money that you spend on basic can then be deducted from the prime. Over to you, Nats.
So the prime license includes everything that the basic license has, as well as you'll receive all the training material for our 50 plus SACWA aligned training material, plus 4 QCTO training materials, and you'll receive new or updated training material, specifically as and when there's new QCTO training material for us to develop, we will add that into the catalog and you will get access for that. You also get access to our DIY QCTO accreditation workshops. This does have a monthly license fee. You also have the option to access downloadable PDF articles, and we provide you with lots of resources. And this also includes the online marketing presence setup.
Great. Thanks, Natalie. Okay, the next one, of course, is Platinum. I'm going to pounce on Penny and say, Penny, just talk about the Platinum license, please. Give them a little bit of an insight into what they'll be receiving.
Sure, thanks, Ken. So the Platinum, we used to have like a corporate license, and then we were talking about it, and we've kind of evolved it now. We call it the Platinum. So this is typically for multi-branch businesses or larger businesses. We look after several companies that have thousands of employees, and they have a very significant budget that they invest in their own in-house training. So this is ideal for that type of an operation where you've got your in-house training facility and you want to expand in terms of your health and safety offerings. We also include there an IP release. So in terms of them being able to set up their own e-learning platforms and intranets, etc., this works extremely well. They often have different branches, so they need to be able to replicate the facilitator guides, and we just clear that so that they have their IP release for that. Sometimes even multiple countries, etc. as well. So very, very powerful bundle and extremely affordable.
Great.
Ken.
So now you've got an overview of the different licenses or bundles. I'm going to just quickly run through the fees. And there's an upfront fee, which means like a deposit, if you like. And the upfront fee is then supported by a monthly license or membership fee. So the prices that you'll see there are the standard price, which is throughout the year. Then the October price, where there's a 15% saving. And then it's going to go down to November, where it's a 10% saving. So we'll start with the fast track, which is the first aid program. And there's no monthly license fee there. The standard fee is 11,890 Rand, including VAT. In October, it's 9,286, so there's a nice opportunity to save a lot of money on that. And of course, next month, it's going to go up to the normal 10%. Natalie, talk about the next one, please.
Sure. So the next one is the starter, which has no monthly membership. The standard price is 17,825, and the October 15% discount on that is 15,150, and November it goes up slightly to 16,042.
There we go. So that's the starter. And then Penny, the basic.
Sure. So the basic is a really good opportunity to get a foothold in terms of the licensing programs. And there's a tremendous amount of value in the delivery here for you. So the standard price would normally be 33,925, including VAT. And your October special with your massive 15% discount, yeah, we're really generous. 28,836 Rand and 25, and that's about 30 odd thousand next month. So please take advantage of these crazy discounts. It's really our opportunity each year to make these discounts available. Sometimes I wonder, are we going to make money at the end of the day? But anyway, please take advantage of us. We want to add value for you and get you set up ready to face 2025. Back to Ken.
Penny's joking about it. Her nickname is Money Penny, like the James Bond characters. So every single cent we get, she turns over 3 or 4 times before it is spent. And well done, Penny. You've done a great job there. Okay. So Natalie, on to Prime, please.
Yeah, so Prime is our all-encompassing package for those with single branch, and the upfront fee comes in at 56,925, which is our standard rate. This does include the monthly membership license fee. And then in October, the discount is quite substantial, coming in at about 48,000 odd. And then in November, you're looking at 51,000.
So something that Penny said earlier on, she said that it takes a couple of months to get your unit, to get your accreditation in place. That QCTO accreditation is a tedious process, more so now because more and more people want QCTO accreditation. So here's my halfpenny's worth. Get your foot in the door as quickly as possible with the Prime package so that you can get your application in, so that your application can be close to the top of the pile when it comes to the person that's going to come and do the verification for you. We honestly believe that it is, from a marketing point of view, it's critical that you get accreditation. And then secondly, from a compliance point of view, a quality point of view, when you want to represent yourself as a credible organization, accreditation is a must. So when I say it's a must, it's not in the law. If it's not in the law, you don't have to do it, but it is strongly, strongly advised so that you can get some traction in the marketplace as quickly as possible in 2025. And then I'll just touch on this one over here. This is the platinum that Penny was talking about. We called it the corporate before. And we have universities and large manufacturing operations and companies with branches. One company that we dealt with has branches in 11 countries in Africa. So that's the kind of fee. We base it on the number of employees within the organization, and it starts at 114,000 Rand. And you can see that there is a discount that goes 97,000, 102,000, and it may very well be the best thing that you as a corporate could do, because there's massive savings to be had here, while still representing the legislation and compliance for the employer's obligations. Now, there is a monthly license fee or a membership fee or subscription fee, and that's 1,725 Rand. All these fees over here include VAT. And please, if it's starting to look a little daunting to you and go, ooh, this is quite expensive, it's, remember, all and any expenditure in terms of setting up a business is tax deductible. So if you keep a proper set of books, you will then be able to claim this money back in part or in whole from the taxman at the end of the financial year. So this is an investment in a business. And then, of course, the last thing that we'll mention is that any and all of those 24 programs that we've got are available, including the SACWA programs. They are available where you can purchase them per item. And you can start by building up a small library of 1 or 2 programs, and then you can grow it and grow it and grow it until you get to the starter process. Okay, so those are the prices, 2,995. It goes down in October to 2,545, and then November it'll be 2,695. Sure. Okay, so that's a lot of information that we provided you. We believe that if you're going to be setting yourself up in business, this is probably one of the best ways that you can get up and running as quickly as possible. Otherwise, like myself, I spent literally months researching, running around, asking people, paying specialists to help me with these things. And that was a very expensive process. It was tedious, which meant that I wasn't able to generate income quickly enough. I was in a position where I was growing really slowly, but those years we managed to get some traction and slowly grew our training business we had about 20 staff members. The company was based in Cape Town and it was called INTRA-SAFE. And on that score, Penny and I have about 35 years worth of personal experience in small business. So if you're a newcomer to the small business industry, this is going to be we believe a very doable activity. You'll be able to create an asset which you'll be able to grow, provide for your family. It's something that maybe in 10, 15, 20 years time that you'll be able to sell back into the marketplace. You know, this is not a job. This is a business. And we'll be treating you like a newcomer, a startup business. We'll be treating you with respect. We'll provide you with as much information as possible so that you can get your business up and running. And then the business, I mean, I had somebody asking me, what should I call my business? And that's one of those conference calls where we'll talk to you about what to call the business. Natalie knows all about things like SEO, search engine optimization. We know that there are companies that if you call it a weird name, nobody's going to find you on the internet. It's as simple as that. It has to be clear, concise. It needs to be memorable. It needs to be repeatable. And we'll talk to you about all of these things. Before you even register a website, give us a call. Tell us, this is what I would like to, or send me a WhatsApp message. This is what I'd like to call my website or my company name. And I'll be able to give you some sort of insights or advice. If I can't do it, if Penny can't do it, if Natalie can't do it, we have another 7 or 8 people on our team that will be able to provide you with a lot of information, or we've got other people such as accountants and attorneys that will be able to help you. With that, I just want to wrap up and say, if this is of interest to you, please just WhatsApp Natalie on that number. It's 082 499 6911, 082 499 6911. You can grab your phone and take a photograph of that screen and send her a message that goes BF, Black Friday quote. And she'll provide you from our accounting system, she'll provide you a formal quote, which you can take a look at and then discuss with your accountant or your attorney or your partner and so forth. So at this stage, I'm going to stop the recording. I want to say to everybody that has joined us live, thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate it. We didn't have any hassles from a technical point of view. And for those of you that are watching the video, give us a call. Let us know what your needs are. Talk to us. Maybe there are things that we have not covered that we can cover for you in a short chat. And then as you come on board, you're going to find that there is a wealth of information that's going to come your way. So having said that, thank you to everybody. Don't go away. I'm just going to stop the recording. And then I am going to take questions, open microphones, and we'll see where we go with that. All right. Thanks so much then. And to Natalie and Penny, thank you so much for your support. All the best then. Bye for now.